Well, hey there, it's Elke.
And Jen, and welcome to another episode of the Creative and Ambitious Entrepreneur Podcast. And in this episode, we are talking about evergreen products and why you need to have evergreen products in your Zazzle store to be profitable on Zazzle.
Exactly. Well, first of all, let's step back. First of all, we want consistent income, right? We don't want to make a huge amount one month and then have nothing happen the next month on our Zazzle business, because that's not very predictable. How can you quit your job or retire or, feel comfortable about staying home with your kids or, take a long extended vacation because, that's been your dream? How can you do all of those things when you're not quite clear as to whether you're going to make income even 3 months from now in your Zazzle business? And whether it's Zazzle or e-commerce, anything that you've got online where you're dependent on people coming to shop consistently time and time again, even if it's not the same people, but you want a certain number every month to come and shop and buy a certain number of dollars worth of product so that you get the payout, and that's your salary, right? Or your business's income. And because of that, we want to be more consistent. So the way we teach our students in the Profit by Design Academy is to set out their product inventory in such a way and actually label their products, give them a designation based on how they perform and when they perform during the year. So that they can be products and they can see their products, so that they can have products that are in their inventory that are going to consistently perform for them year after year, or at least consistently perform for them certain times of the year. So that's why we came up with this evergreen and seasonal product type. Now, it's not, we didn't invent those words, but we're using those words to explain the things that you need to do in terms of categorizing your products and then checking to see if the inventory that you have is in a certain makeup of those two types of products. So that's what we're going to dive into today, because you want to make consistent sales, right?
Yes.
So keep listening, and we're going to just cover the 3 points that we're going to focus in on today, and then we're going to dive right in and get really deep.
So the 3 points are, number one, definition of evergreen and seasonal, because some of us don't know that. I mean, when you're talking about evergreen and seasonal products, you know what those words might mean, but we're really going to give you the definition of it so that you understand fully. Number two is how the definition can change based on the situation that's happening in the e-commerce market, in the e-commerce space, within trends, and even within your own Zazzle sales. Number three then is recommended goal. And the recommended goal...
Yeah, we're not going to tell the recommended goal. You have to keep listening.
The recommended goal is something that you want to aim for so that you can optimize your Zazzle store for optimal Zazzle sales.
And we'll tell you that later. Okay, so let's start with definitions. Do you want to take this on? Or
No, you go for it.
I'm taking this on. Okay. Okay, so let's start with seasonal. It's pretty basic, right? It's like seasonal means that any product that sells within a specific season is going to be labeled seasonal. However, when we think seasonal, we think Easter, St. Patrick's Day, Valentine's Day, Christmas, right? I was getting there. Thanksgiving, yeah. I was doing them in order from calendar through the calendar. So if I missed any, you know what I mean. And the thing is that those are the worst seasonal ones, because if you have something that even sells 1 year, for example, I'm going to give you a story here. One of my Christmas cards 1 year sold so much that I made $10,000 off of one card. And I was like, I'm hit that jackpot.
In a very short amount of time.
Yeah, in a week too. And I was like, okay, I've got that Christmas card. It's going to sell every year at Christmas. I'm going to make so much money. Next year it's going to double. And I was just rocking it. I was thinking, I've got this. And yeah, lo and behold, I made all of those really bad assumptions because they were actually not so great. And the next year, I did sell the card a little bit, but I didn't make $10,000 the second year. Or did I double my income like I thought I would? And I did everything in my power to make that card and all the design on the card. I did all the things that we usually do with our 5 strategies in terms of, magnifying the possibilities that it could sell again, and it didn't sell. So seasonal for me has turned into vacation money. So if it works, it's awesome. If it doesn't work, It doesn't work. But I'm not going to depend my business or have my business dependent on that seasonal type of sale. Now, there's other seasonalities as well in terms of when certain things happen. Not that they're holidays, but certain things happen like babies coming into the world, people getting married, people graduating. Let's see, what's another seasonality? Going back to school, right? And before COVID, this is before COVID, those were pretty predictable.
Yeah.
And even I wouldn't have called those I would have called them seasonal, but they were predictable because every year they happened at the same time and you could count on them. So if you then had like certain products that were geared towards each of these things that happened at a predictable time in the year, and you spread that out over the year, that your income was actually consistently coming from each of these chunks of seasonality, then you were fine, right? And so they weren't considered seasonal products per se, but they are really locked into the seasonal aspect of things. But now, because of COVID, and I am jumping to number 2 before I tell you Evergreen, how can it change? And it's like COVID changed all that, because now people are graduating all the time, people are marrying all the time, people are having babies all the time, people are anything that was except for birthdays, right? That's about the only thing, because that's locked in, but everything else has shifted and people are doing it when they can rather than when it typically was the case. And so that's another example of how a product can become seasonal. And that type of seasonal product you can depend on, right? Because you know it's going to happen every year. So it's not that bad in terms of just that Christmas card example that I told you about. And as long as you're keeping up with trends, you're going to be reasonably okay. But we want you to lock in even more consistency, predictability, and the ability to just know even 5-10 months from now, this is how much money I'm going to make on Zazzle. And you listening in might think, oh my gosh, like how is it possible that Jen and Elke know exactly how much they're going to make 5-6 months from now or even a year from now? And it's because we've been, first of all, on Zazzle for a long time and we know our niches. But we also have done something really important. We've put in our product mix Evergreen products, and I'll explain what those are. Those are products that sell all the time, right? Evergreen. They're always green. They're always selling. It doesn't need to be a particular occasion that's happening. It doesn't need to be a different like holiday that's happening. And so those products, and you'll know what they are and it's not actually the product type, it's the product use. And those are the products that we want to have in our inventory to really help nail down that consistent base level income. And that's what we're talking about here today for you to consider, to add those to your inventory and to really check to see what is making up your inventory right now. And if it's not, like if you don't have a lot of evergreen products in your inventory, this is one of the reasons that you probably feel a little bit more unsure about whether Zazzle is going to work for you long term. And we don't want that. We want you to build a business up that you can consistently count on that income. Even when COVID hit, like it didn't change for us. We had some different things that we started out and like took advantage of with the COVID changes, where we added more products that were COVID related, but our core product suite is still selling for us. It didn't change. It didn't. And so anyone who was in weddings or, any of the occasions, they got hit hard, right? Because things changed. And what we want you to do is have at least something that's like almost bulletproof, even though it's defined as evergreen. I couldn't say I could guarantee it be bulletproof, but it's definitely very much proof. It's protected from all of these changes that are possibly happening, and therefore you can build out an e-commerce business that feels like it's solid, and you can just add to it with extra stuff that's seasonal when you want to, and we love that. Okay, so let's do some more how the definition can change, or did I cover it completely?
Well, I think you've covered a bit of it in terms of COVID and then talking about the seasons and how an evergreen product or a seasonal product can, become one or the other. But it's not only just to do with the trends that are happening in the outside world, but it's also to do with your own sales as well. Like you might have, let's say, for example, and of course, like this is disclaimer COVID, but before COVID happened, there could be certain products, let's say a graduation card or a wedding invitation, that I would personally sell all year round. It was kind of like this weird one-off thing where that card, whether it be that graduation card or that wedding invitation, it sold throughout the entire year, no matter what season, no matter what time of year, no matter if it was spring or summer or fall, etc. Because the product that I made, it was so evergreen in the fact that the design could be used throughout the year. It didn't have like colors that associated with spring or summer or fall or winter. And it just picked up and it started selling throughout the entire year. So I consider that to be one of my evergreen products, a one-off evergreen product, not the entire wedding collection or all of my wedding products. Just that one wedding invitation became one of my evergreen best-selling items because it actually sold quite a bit too. So that added to my evergreen income, and it didn't continue. I didn't consider it to be seasonal because it was consistent, and I had the data to support that and the sales to support that throughout the entire year. If you are realizing that one of your products is selling consistently for maybe, let's say, a couple months or even a couple weeks, I wouldn't consider that to be your evergreen income. It's kind of like a one-off, like, wow, this is awesome, this is happening, and I'm making money. But if you have data for, let's say, throughout the entire year, and then going in forward next year, like 2021, you're saying, or you've realized that you've had a product that had sold consistently through 2020, and this is also on top of COVID. So maybe COVID has actually made some of your products become evergreen products. Then you can look at that data and say, okay, these are certain things that I can incorporate in my evergreen income, quote unquote, so that I can count on that throughout the entire year. And that's sort of like where a situation can change from a seasonal and become an evergreen product based on, as I said, external trends like COVID or your own sales. And just because maybe that one design is extremely popular. And also sometimes you don't realize, but because Zazzle's an international company and internationally well known, there are certain events and certain seasons or certain holidays that happen in the other side of the world on completely opposite dates, right? I was realizing that I was selling a lot of Father's Day invitations or Father's Day cards in February, and that's because in September, because in September, that's when Father's Day is in Australia. So it catches me in the fall. In North America, we have Father's Day in June, and then on the other side of the world, they have Father's Day at the end of the year. So that product, because it was caught up in the Australian marketplace somehow, became sort of an evergreen changing product where it was consistently selling not throughout the entire year, but at the beginning, at the end of the year. So there's so many different combinations and permutations that can happen with some of your one-off products. And then also, of course, COVID has created some sort of weird vortex where some of the products that we never thought would be staples or evergreens have become staple and evergreen products.
And then I'm going to throw another wrench in the whole mix, because you can then, once you're on Zazzle for a while and it's been several years, you're going to have data that shows your products sell not just throughout the months of the year, but they sell every year. And that could be like each month of the year, and then the next year, each month of the year, or it could be only in June to August in every single year. And so those would also be considered your evergreen, no matter what they are, even though, because they're not like my Christmas card where it was like one-off. But if you saw trends that were consistent year after year, even if it was typical, like defined as a seasonal, you could consider that part of your core group. That's your evergreen products that are giving you the evergreen, like green money, like every time, right?
Yeah. I know, I definitely have some of those, and you do too. It doesn't have to be the entire year. As you said, it could be literally the summer months or literally the winter months. But every year that it's like clockwork, right? That they start selling.
And it's the same amount or even more every year, and it just comes back. And so that's going to be something that you're going to notice in your store over time. If you're new and you're listening to this, then you can that's going to happen to me down the road. But in the meantime, it's not going to be as obvious for you, but anyone who's long-term and seasoned Zazzle designer who has that sales data, you're going to maybe find some of those products and you go, well, they only sell, you may not even notice it because they just they're selling again. I wish they'd sell sell all year. But then if you look at the data, you actually see they keep selling, between, as I said, June and August, for example, every year. And it's like, oh, it's actually an evergreen for me because it's constantly selling year after year.
Yeah.
Okay,
so the third
point
is
number
the
3.
recommended goal, and it was like this weird, mysterious goal that we need to tell you now, obviously. Now that you kind of have more of an understanding about evergreen and seasonal products, what do you think? What is your recommended goal? How many products should you have of one versus the other?
In your whole product mix, what do you think? Yeah, so we want to hear from you about that, because it's eye-opening. A lot of people think, it's based on this, or because I'm in this niche, or because I have this many products, I don't have to have this many sales because I can, I've got so many selling for me, or all kinds of different combinations. But and everyone thinks everything has to be more, right?
Or the fact that they put those sort of stories to their Zazzle store, or the fact that they're not selling or they should be selling, or that you don't actually even know what's in your store.
This happened to us initially, and until we realized that we need to take ownership and know what's in our store and check to see if those things are working for us, all those products we made, and just taking ownership and saying, okay, well, if they're not working, how can we fix that? Or what is it, do we fix the old products, or do we ditch those new, we don't ever delete, but we do then say, okay, well, we're just expecting something from something that's not going to be able to be delivering that income anyway. And we have to get our act in gear and start making the products that truly are serving our Zazzle customer. And so, but in either case, over the years, what we've realized, and it's kind of fun because that 80-20 rule, the Pareto rule, it can be applied to so many different things and give so many different explanations, but it's somehow always the case, 80% of your income comes from 20% of your products, or 80% of this gets so much of this. And what we want you to know is that what's happened with us is, to be successful, 80% of our products that we have in our core inventory are evergreen, and 20% are seasonal. Okay, and we still have and I don't want to mix it up, but there's another part to it that ultimately we want to get you to. When you're in our Creative CEO Mastermind, we'll add the second part of that Pareto rule for you. But right now, what you want actually is, and everyone's going to go why? I'm not going to, get anything for Christmas. I'm not going to be able to, you want me to make 20 products for Christmas and 80 for Evergreen. And then if I'd have to make another 100 products in order so I can make 40 products for Christmas and have 160 for Evergreen. That's crazy. What are you talking about? It's yes, it is. It's crazy, but that's what works for us. Because if we have that much in terms of our inventory as 80% evergreen, we're going to have a much more ability to sleep at night, because Zazzle's our income source, right? It's really important to us to make sure that we consistently make money on Zazzle. And I think that's also important to you, right? Whether you're starting out and you're just trying to get that level of income up, or you've gotten there and then you're have this fear, this imposter syndrome, where you realize, oh my gosh, can I do this again next month? I just had a really nice income month. But you can if you set yourself up nicely with 80% evergreen and 20% seasonal products. And it's holy smokes, how is that going to happen? But it can, and we show you actually how to do that in the Profit by Design Academy, which is our signature course that talks and teaches you the 5 strategies. And truly, all of this teaching is not to make your life miserable. It's to say, hey, this is actually what happened to us. And when we started getting successful, we're what happened? How is this different? Why is this changed now? Why are we now getting successful, consistent income that is always at that same level? And it's because, 80-20, evergreen, seasonal. And so we highly recommend you give that a shot.
So just to recap now, our podcast episode on why you need to have evergreen products in your Zazzle store to be profitable. Why is it so important to have evergreen products? Evergreen products give you that consistent income throughout the year, and seasonal products give you that burst of energy, and as Elke mentioned, your vacation or fun money, but you can't rely on that, because if you're relying on these bursts of energy here and there sporadically throughout the year, you're not going to be able to, first of all, get consistent income, and then second of all, probably not reach your dream goal unless it's like what happened to Elke, like this one time where she earned $10,000 on a one-off invitation
That was
or
so
Christmas
sweet.
card, and it's awesome and it's amazing and you feel so good and you're almost like on a high after that. But afterwards, there's no predictability and there's no probability that you're going to do that again. There might be a chance, but you can't guarantee that. So Evergreen products are definitely something that you need to have in your Zazzle store so that you can make sure that that consistent income comes throughout the year. And so the 3 points that we covered throughout this episode were the definition of evergreen and seasonal products. The second point was how the definition can change based on what's happening within trends, what's happening within the Zazzle marketplace, what's happening within e-commerce space in general, or even global events. And then also what's happening within your store. Like if you have a one-off product that just kind of takes off and like you have these evergreen sales throughout the year consistently. And the third product is what your recommended goal or recommended production schedule, so to speak, should be in terms of having 80% of your products be evergreen and 20% be seasonal. And make sure that you stick to that. Because you don't want to have more seasonal than evergreen. And then also do an analysis and check it out, because you might think that you have evergreen products or you might think that you have 80% evergreen products, but I'm pretty sure that the answer is probably not what you think it is.
Well, it also stops you going like doing this shiny object syndrome thing, because yeah, when it comes to Christmas or Easter or Valentine's, like, oh, I should have some of that.
Yeah.
But if you think about your product mix that you have selling in your store, if you don't have those evergreen products locked in, then you shouldn't go after those shiny objects like the seasons or weddings or whatever else, because that's a gamble, and we don't like gambling. We like creating a business online that's in the e-commerce space, which is already pretty unpredictable. We want that to be as solid as possible so that we know that we're going to get our income.
Yeah. So thank you so much for watching another episode or listening to another episode of the Creative and Ambitious Entrepreneur Podcast, where we talk to you about the products that you need to have in your product suite for evergreen and seasonal to be profitable on Zazzle.
And get that consistent income.
Yes.
Month after month, year after year.
So thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.